Earlier this week, I reviewed The Amazing Spider-Man, and in my review, I talked about how I felt like there was something missing from the movie and that I would really like to see a director's cut. A lot of people didn't really understand what I meant, so let me explain.
Your father was a very secretive man.
Do you think what happened to you was an accident?
If you want the truth, come and get it.
Do you have any idea what you really are?
Like I said, I reviewed The Amazing Spider-Man earlier this week, and I highly recommend you check out that review before you watch this video. It's a 20-something minute video, but I think it's worth watching before you watch this, because this is really more of a supplement to that. However, feel free to watch this regardless, because I'm going to talk about things that were cut from The Amazing Spider-Man that really kind of messed with the movie, I think. And this is thanks to Badass Digest, who did a great write-up, and I recommend you check that out by clicking the link down in the info. They were able to better illustrate it than I was in my review, but now, using their information and my original thoughts, I'm going to put together a better idea of how I feel The Amazing Spider-Man got screwed up in a final edit. So first things first, if you've seen any trailers, any TV spots, any marketing material, the whole major draw of this movie was the untold story. If you've seen The Amazing Spider-Man, what untold story were they talking about? Peter's whole genetic backstory was definitely much bigger in this movie before what I think must have been a final cut. Now, I am irritated myself seeing TV spots after having seen The Amazing Spider-Man that feature lines of dialogue that are not in the movie, such as Connors or Ratha, I'm not sure, saying things to Peter like, do you have any idea what you really are? Do you think what happened to you was an accident? You're part of a much bigger plan? That stuff is not in the movie, and if you're not bothered by the fact that they are pushing the movie with those lines, then I disagree with you, because I think that is kind of false advertising, actually, to be honest, because they're pushing this untold story, and then they don't give it to you. And a lot of people are saying, well, that'll be covered in the sequels. Well, this is not an advertisement for a sequel. It's an advertisement for the first movie. So I personally think that's garbage. Now, moving on from the marketing and stuff like that, let's talk about the movie itself. I felt like something was missing. And up until I read Badass Digest's article, which really kind of summed it up for me, I was like, what happened to this storyline? What happened to this storyline? I remember there was an image of Ratha and the Lizard. What happened to all of that? It was totally cut. Now, I am obviously not 100% sure about any of this. Nobody can be, because we are not the people that edited this movie. But it just seems that way, and when you see the proof that Badass Digest has illustrated better than I was able to in my review, you're gonna feel very differently about it, so stick with me here. First, before I get into the major issues, I'll talk about some smaller things. The first thing being, I felt like there wasn't much closure to the whole Uncle Ben trying to find his killer thing that Peter Parker / Spider-Man was doing, and a lot of people have said, well, you know, Captain Stacy said that he's not helping people and he's just hunting these guys for vengeance, and yeah, okay, I guess that kind of is the reason why Peter stops looking for his killer, but I just feel like that was a little awkward. So I feel like that might have been something that was goofed up a little bit in editing. Maybe not, that's not the worst thing, but it's possible. Another thing that was cut from the movie is Connor's family. Why the heck would they cut something that could make us relate to or feel bad for, I guess, the main villain more? Connor's family was cast. Apparently scenes were shot, and these scenes were cut from the movie. Why? I don't know. And finally, the biggest thing that was cut from this movie was the untold story. Where was the untold story? What untold story was in this movie? The entire basis of the marketing for this movie was about the untold story. And there was no untold story. You could say, oh, well, his parents are in it for 5 minutes and they're setting up the untold story for the sequels. This movie promised an untold story, and it did not have one. Now, I do think it did have one initially that was cut. Like I said, this is the biggest issue that I have with this movie, and the reason I am so desperate to see a director's cut. The primary thing here is, what the heck happened to Dr. Ratha? That is the biggest thing. There's a couple of other things I'm going to say in a moment, but what happened to Dr. Ratha? If you don't remember, Dr. Ratha was the guy on the bridge who was in the car, Lizard threw the car over the bridge, and that's the last you see of that guy. Now, you might think, okay, well, he died in the car when the car fell off the bridge. You saw him smash his face on the glass. If that's the case, why was there an image released of Dr. Ratha being held by the throat by the Lizard? Do you remember that image? If not, here it is, to refresh your memory. Where was this in the movie? Oh, It wasn't. And even worse, I have not seen these images, but somebody found them. I don't know where they are from. But look at this. Look at all these images from the movie that are not in the movie. You can see that there was some sort of fight in the lab with the Lizard and Spider-Man and Ratha all there. Where did that go? Now, Badass Digest made a guess, and I completely agree, that that scene was cut because primarily that's where all of the lines that are in the trailer were from. Do you have any idea what you really are? Do you think this was an accident? If you want the truth about your parents, Peter, come and get it. All of that stuff may have been in this scene, and that's why it had to be cut. They couldn't edit it enough to the point where it worked without all of those lines of dialogue because for some reason they decided to cut the untold story, the genetic origin that they had for Peter Parker. Why? Maybe it's because they want to save it for the sequel. That's garbage in my opinion, because they advertised it for this movie. But just admit, you're thinking to yourself right now, wow, this makes sense. This is so true, and where did all this stuff go? Why was it cut? These are questions that I desperately want answered. And just another small thing to add to the whole untold story being cut from the movie, there's a shot in the trailer, which you can see right here, of Peter showing Connors the decay rate algorithm on a big chalkboard. It looks like an awesome set, his awesome home office, whatever that is. That's not in the movie. That scene is in a kitchen, and he writes it on a napkin. Badass Digest ventures to guess that that was a reshoot. And at the time, I didn't think of it. I was like, okay, it was kind of a funny scene where, he asks where it came from, and Peter goes, all up in my head. It's kind of funny. So I didn't really think about it because it worked. But now that I'm thinking about it, and I'm sure you are too, that scene was pretty damn cheap, wasn't it? In the kitchen, on a napkin, when you've got this shot of a beautiful looking set of an awesome home office for a crazy scientist. What happened to that? But that's all I've got for you. Like I said, please check out the Badass Digest article because it goes into more detail and it's got a couple more points and there's the images and stuff. You can check it out and it's fantastic. Thank you very much to Badass Digest for putting that together. But pass this video around to your friends if you felt the same way I did after The Amazing Spider-Man. Something felt off. You really wanted to love it, but something just didn't feel right. If that's how you felt, hopefully this provides a little bit of clarification and a little bit of hope that the movie could have been something else. Even if it wasn't better, just something different. I feel like it could have been better. Just the thought of these scenes makes me like the movie more. Is that weird? I don't know. But I doubt we'll ever see this stuff, unfortunately. I don't know what the hell happened, but something is amiss here, and you cannot possibly deny it. So let me know in the comments what you think of all this stuff. Do you think I'm being a little bit too conspiracy theory for your liking? Or do you think, very blatantly, this movie got a last-minute cut? Where the heck did all this stuff go? Let me know if you caught on to anything else that I didn't, or if you have found any more information that I have not and Badass Digest has not. Let me know anything about this whole mystery, the untold story of the untold story of The Amazing Spider-Man, and that's pretty much it.